Hello and welcome. Well, for parents, after the experiences of remote and distant learning in 2020, Term 1 has presented a welcome move back to having children in the classroom and the opportunity to start the year afresh. It also has many parents eager to make a conscious effort to make this first term and beyond, of course, for the rest of the year really count. So, if you are a parent keen to continue supporting your children's learning from home while you are in the right place. Now, lucky for us, we're joined today by James Burnett, who will be sharing tips that will help. Now, a little bit about our guest. James is the CEO and co-founder of Origo Education. He's a father of three and an expert how to teach primary school children mathematics at school and at home. Now, Origo at Home is a free online resource designed to help parents with more than 20,000 that have already accessed the program. I'm sure by now it's actually well and above 20,000. Now, the online program has activities for each day of the week, and it is specific to different primary school year levels. Welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. Yes, great to be here. I'm good, thanks.
Excellent. Well, we spoke with you last year where you kindly shared your top tips for teaching kids mathematics at home during homeschooling. Now, here we are at the start of a new school year with the kids back in the classroom. And, just through your business in general, I'd love to know what has been your experiences with parents and just their general feeling and the notion about the year that was, in the 2020 school year. And just generally, the time that children spent outside the classroom. Have you had a lot of sort of feedback come through to you at all?
Just to say that, last year was a tough year for all, and that they realise that 2021 is the year they really got to make up, make up some gains of what was lost. We tried, the community collectively tried to flatten the curve. Forgetting, if you like, last year, and a lot of children learning from home in different states at various times of the year, and this year they just have to do so much more really to get ahead. So that might require, the highly enthusiastic and motivated parents doing some additional learning at home to
Yeah.
give those children, I wouldn't say an edge, but they will sort of get them back to where they probably should be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's sort of what we've been hearing.
But I mean, do you think that there's a fair bit of catch up to do, and I guess also on a global scale because your business isn't just here in Australia, it's overseas as well. Do you think it is the fact that it is an even playing field as children globally have experienced time out of the classroom? I mean, in America and in the
No,
UK.
I won't say it's an even playing field at all. I think in Australia
Yeah.
we're very fortunate where the way it was handled by our leaders, and for the most part our children were in school. But that's other countries, for example, you mentioned, yes, my business is elsewhere. It's in Thailand and US and Canada, and in the US, those students there they missed out virtually the whole year.
I guess a lot of them are
So
still out of school at the moment, aren't they?
still, so you have a
Yes.
hybrid approach of the teacher will have five students today and a different five students tomorrow and a different five students the next day, and they rotate through. So it's not a playing field. We've been very, very fortunate. Um, there's more. Obviously, there's always more we can do.
Perspective is always a very interesting thing to have. And as well, looking through this lens as a parent yourself, I'd love to know what are your personal thoughts?
Oh
Just
well,
on
my
that.
youngest is she's doing grade 12 at the moment, and I can tell you too, and she knows that she admits it to me. Even though she appreciated a few weeks of working from home, or schooling from home, she needed to get back to school, and she knew she slipped behind. So the school's been very good about understanding. I mean, this is her senior year,
Mm,
she has to make up ground somehow,
yes.
and she's not alone. They're all working very hard to do that diligently.
Now, I understand you've accumulated your fair share of tips to help support parents since creating the likes of Go Maths and Stepping Stone mathematics
Mm.
workbooks for Australian schools over the last few years. I'd love to know what do you think is the most important tip that you can give parents in general who are just wanting to
Yeah,
support their children's education
yeah.
and help them teach teach maths to their children at home?
I can't speak specifically because parents have children at different grade levels. There's no sense in me giving specifics in a short interview like this on how to teach this idea or that idea or that idea.
Yes.
But it is critical that your children do not hear you say, "Oh, I was never very good at maths." And if they come to you with a problem, don't say, "Oh, go to your father, or go to your mother," and I was never very good at maths. And this doesn't happen when they're young, but as they get up to even upper primary school, if they see it's okay for you to switch off, they will switch off. And it's not okay to be no good at mathematics. No one verbally, outwardly says, "Oh, I was never very good at reading and writing." If that was the case, they would hide that information. They're generally, a little bit ashamed of that. But too often we hear parents and adults say, "I was never very good at maths," and they don't mind admitting it, because maths is for those people. And when kids hear that, they think, "Oh, it's okay for me then. I won't be good at maths. I'll switch off as well." I think that when you ask what's the general tip, I don't think there's a stronger one than that. That is critical. You don't want to turn kids off. You want to turn them on. You don't
Yeah.
want to create anxiety by the way you handle their homework. You really got to work with them and work through it. I couldn't give a more important general tip.
And in general, why do you think it's just important for parents to support their children's education at home?
Well, most research will tell us, I'm not going to be able to cite any research, but I have read this, where a tremendous amount of learning, if not most of learning, happens outside of school. So they need that support, and they develop the attitudes towards learning at home as much as at school.
Yeah.
So if you are a lifelong learner, if you are an educator, and I don't mean in the sense of being a teacher or a lecturer or something like that, but if you like to teach your children little things, that's important. That's critical.
Yeah. Now, we stated in our last chat that the move to distant and remote learning wasn't likely to be forever, and it wasn't,
Thank
as we
goodness.
know. And retrospectively, I'd love to know, what do you see being the positives and the positive takeaways in the experiences of parents homeschooling their children during lockdown?
Oh wow! What are the positives? The children, parents, everyone is they're more willing. They have more of an appetite to learn from video format like this.
Mm,
That they did a little bit of it before, but now we're all forced into this. So we're more comfortable with it. Parents are more comfortable having their kids in front of it for learning. You can learn a lot off YouTube. Oh my goodness. You can learn a lot off YouTube. And I mean, not watching someone else, put together a flat pack table. I'm talking about learning ideas in mathematics, learning ideas in other disciplines as well. So this is really important. I think parents have seen the value in that now. We've been trying to do it for years.
yeah.
Top of my head, I can't really think of anything else. But other real advantages, I guess engaging the parents in instruction. All
Yes.
too often, particularly as our children get older, school is the place to learn, and don't bring it home. We'll do a little bit of homework together, but I don't want to know it. I think they've got more engaged in what's happening in school
Definitely.
because
Yes.
they've sort of had to. Many don't like it, but they sort of had to. So I think that'll be another plus as well.
Yeah. And maybe just an appreciation for what the teachers actually do also.
I totally missed that one. You're absolutely right. Isn't that, you hear that? I haven't heard it this year, but man, we heard a lot last year, didn't I?
Yes.
Didn't we? Everyone's saying, "Oh man, I could not do that job."
Yes.
And it's a very, very hard job. It really is. You got to wear so many hats. Mm.
And do you think even more so now that parents are a little bit more confident in actually assisting their children with their homework and just their education and continuing that learning at home? Do you think?
Yeah. I would think that we would have gained some confidence out of it. There's going to be lots. I mean, it's hard to generalize, isn't it? There's going to be a lot of teachers. A
Of
lot of parents
course.
that just get turned off.
Yes.
They don't want to part of
Completely.
it. And
Yeah.
and for that matter, on the flip side, there's going to be a lot of teachers who have had to deal with parents, dare I say, meddling in the children's learning.
Yes.
So the teacher's trying to teach something this way, and the parents trying to teach the same idea the way they learned. and it really just creates a bit of confusion for the child. So all that has to be sorted out. So there are some negatives as well.
Yes,
But
of
yeah, I'm
course.
glad you brought up the positives first.
Yes, always. Glass half full, girl, always.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, we published an article titled Top Tips to Support Kids Maths Study in 2021. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please tell us what the article is about? And of course, what inspired you to write it?
I just knew that going back to this year, and in light of the points you already raised, teachers, also parents, are going to want to bring their kids up to speed. So, what is it I can do at home? And also, what's happening in I'm always trying to help parents understand what is happening in the classroom and why is it so different to the way I learned. So there's a little bit of that as well. So I remember the first part of the article was on visual representations, giving children pictures of things to help their understanding. That old, pictures are powerful, and that old phrase that pictures worth 1,000 words. It's so true. And we don't normally, if you think back to the way you learned mathematics, it wasn't highly pictorial, was it? We use big storybooks now, things like that in mathematics. The kids are learning from storybooks. So pictures are critical, but yeah, when we were in school, it's highly abstract, highly symbolic, based on memorization, and it doesn't need to be like that. Let me give you an example. Just understanding, you know, 3-digit numbers. You got to read that number. What is that
Yes,
number? Three. Here's a picture.
1, 5.
So it's a
Yeah.
little bit. It's not 315. It's 315 ones. Right. So just reading that number, a little visual model like this helps them break it down. I got to read the hundreds place.
Yes.
Okay. In this particular number, 315. Look at the way I read it. Isn't that odd? We start with the hundreds place. We say 300s, fifth, the ones place, and we jump back and say the teen, a 10. This is confusing for kids. So a little model like this will help them read that as 315. You read that as one number, 15 ones. So a visual model like that. Visual models to help them with their basic number facts, what you might know as we used to call tables.
Hmm.
What's 9 plus 5? 9 plus 5. And the children have to memorize 14. Well, what can we give them? What picture can we give them in their head to create a strategy to work that out? What's 9 plus 5? Oh, here we go. Here's 9. That's a picture of 9, isn't it? So no symbols involved. It's in what we call a 10 frame. So in the lower grades, they start using 10 frames like this, and they place counters on the 10s frame. So 9 and 5. So what's 9 and 5? When you see 9 and 5, I want you to make a 10. So you can take one of these and put it over there. Oh, 9 plus 5 is the same as 10 plus 4. Is 10 plus 4 easier to do in my head? Absolutely. So a little visual model, a little visual representation like that helps the kids form a mind picture of
Yes.
the thinking strategy that you want them to have. So that's a big advantage. You can make connections, and it helps with language as well. Here's something you might use in grade 6. Can you see there? You got
For anyone
yeah.
listening to this via podcast, James is actually showing us some visual representations at the moment. But James, could you just talk us through this one for anyone that's maybe just listening to this, not watching the video footage?
So yeah, this one a bit challenging. Then we have the number 3 and 5 hundredths, and it's in a little what I would call a slider. Okay, so you can see the names of the places. There's 3 ones. So the ones place is stationary. The tenths place is 0 in the tenths place, and there's 5 in the hundredths place. Now, the misconception, if I want to multiply this number by 10, what I often hear teachers and parents say is you move the decimal place. You don't move the decimal point. The decimal point has to stay beside the ones. It always tells us where the 1 is, or the ones are. So you don't do that. So with this particular visual model, I can slide the digits. I slide the digits to the side. So when you multiply or divide by 10 or 100 or 1,000, you don't move the decimal point. You move the digits to the left or the right. And this is giving them a model to help them understand what's happening, so they don't get that misconception. The decimal point has to stay beside the ones place. That's our point of reference.
So everyone listening in via the podcast, as we just mentioned, James has been showing us some visual representations as a great way to better engage students from a visual perspective. I mean, I'd love to understand, from your perspective also, what do you find are the most common challenges children experience in general learning maths?
Look, there's a couple of answers to that. When we're saying children, I'm primary school based, so we deal with the preppies through to foundation level through to sixth grade. We can extend to seventh grade, but the basic number facts, the tables, if you like, are still the number one problem, and for some reason, it seems like it's got worse over the years. So you'll still get your high school teachers, and students for that matter. The kids still don't know their facts. And it's very hard to learn high school mathematics if you don't have your basic facts understood by that stage, or your tables, if you like. So tables is a major pain point. When I last taught seventh grade, which is going back to the early 90s now, I think I probably had only a third or fewer, maybe a quarter of my class who knew their basic facts.
Wow.
And it just hinders you. How can they learn more complex concepts if they don't know their basic facts? I mean, the basic facts of tables are the nuts and bolts of mathematics.
Yeah.
You have to have those in order to do the other things. The other one, if I could pick just one, is fractions. And when I say fractions, I mean common fractions. So the wheels tend to fall off when the children start learning common fractions in a formal sense, and that is writing symbols. For whatever reason, that's when some kids come to school loving mathematics. They're age 5 and 6 and they love mathematics. They don't know necessarily that's called mathematics, but they love it. And they'll go along for a number of years, and then some stage they start teaching those fractions and they go, oh, maybe mathematics isn't for me. Maybe it's for those kids that sit at that table over there. And unfortunately, everything they're hearing from home and whatever, it's supporting the fact that that's okay. Mathematics isn't for everyone, honey. And that's not the case. It's what I read somewhere, the number one reason you get hired for a job is your literacy skills. The number one reason you get fired from a job is your lack of numeracy skills. So mathematics is critical. And the way we move forward in this future, this world of digital technology, it's more important than ever.
Yeah.
So they're your two pain points in primary school at least.
And so, I mean, how can parents in this instance then best help overcome those challenges, while supporting their children's education from home then?
There's any number of companies like ours that produce resources for at home.
Yeah.
Our at home solution is a more of a hands-on, interactive
Which is free.
experience with it. Yeah, absolutely, it's all free. And you're right. There's tens of thousands of people now using it. So they're designed for parents to sit and actually work with their child. It's not a device. It's not putting the child in front of an app or a device and the child just practices things. Now, that's what you get with these devices. Is generally practice. There's some instruction put in there, but you don't get interaction. I mean, it's not going to ask you a question. You're not going to respond verbally, and then it's not going to react to the way you responded. We're not there yet. We will be one day, but we're not there yet with the technology. And that's what you get. And that's to the second point on my article that I wrote, is you need communication and collaboration. You need to have interaction where I get as a learner the opportunity to justify my thinking. I could explain my current understanding. You don't truly understand something until you have to teach it to someone else.
Yes. You have to digest it. Yes, you've actually totally understand.
Okay.
Yes.
Exactly. That works on a micro scale with children. Just they've learned something. Now you turn and talk to your partner. You explain your thinking. You ask the child, how do you know? It's the number one question you can ask your child at home. If they give you an answer to something, how do you know? Have them, and I'm not just talking mathematics. I'm talking anything. Have them justify their thinking. Last week I was at a cattle conference. Can you believe it? I was at a workshop in Rockhampton. It was a 7-day long workshop. We studied from 8 to 6:30 at night every night. It was intense. I thought I'd sort of forgotten most of it. But when I got home, I had the opportunity to explain to a couple of friends of mine, my wife, my son, some of the ideas I learned. And then just by explaining it, I actually realized, oh, wow, I do know this. And every time I explained, I got better and better and better. And you actually, you learn it. So the more you can do to get your children explaining their thinking, talking about mathematics, justifying their answers, justifying their thinking, their strategies, the better off they will be.
Yes. So in saying that, so collaborating and communicating is
Yep.
so important for everyone, especially when working in teams, and or communicating to others. So with that, how can this help children and adults when learning new ideas, especially in mathematics? Is it the fact that we do digest that information as we have to communicate it out? Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, teachers now will. This is not the way I learned. It's probably not the way you learned either. But this teachers now will actively, put children in situations where they have to collaborate on problems. So it's not just about getting the answer. That they're collectively they come up with a solution, and during that time they are required to explain their thinking and justify their thinking. It is so powerful. Even the speaker at that cattle grazing workshop I went to, he would often get us turning and talking to everyone in the room to explain, our take on what he just said. And it is extremely powerful, because that person across the other table heard something that you didn't hear. And this person heard what you heard, but they interpreted it a different way. And together you actually develop some great understandings. So it's depending on the age of the child, how the teacher will do that. But group work is critical. I always get concerned when I walk into classrooms, particularly the youngest kids, but anywhere really. But when I see the desks are all in rows, it really concerns me. I like to see the
Why is
kids.
that?
Well, because how can you collaborate and work and communicate when you're facing the teacher? When you're facing a teacher, that suggests the information's going one way from the teacher to the child.
Very,
When
very
a lot of the
interesting.
learning's happening between the kids. So they need to be collaborating, working on projects together, even if it's just a question in their book or something. They're discussing it together rather than this implication that I'm going to pour my knowledge down to you. No. I'm going to spark your interest, and we're
Really
going to work
interesting.
together.
So
So
what would you suggest then would be a better way of the desks being sort of laid out in the classroom then to be able to,
Oh, it's going to be plenty of teachers that probably don't like to hear this, but I'm sure they have strategies to work in their own classroom. But I just would have them in groups. So if you got 24 children, or even 32 children I had when I was teaching, you just put them in groups of 4 or 6, whatever you can manage in the area of your floor plan you've been given. So every classroom is different. So and sometimes certain students have to be sat certain ways as well. So for behavioural reasons, but for the most part, you want them in groups. And most of my work is done in the US now, and I'll walk through and I still see these desks not only in rows, but they're separated. So I can walk down columns and rows, around each. It's just like you see on TV. Any of the silly sitcoms or movies you see where children are still in high school or elementary school, they call it over there. Very much so that you still see lots of rows, which is unfortunate, but
yeah.
things are improving.
Now, you talked about how important it is to help children understand the importance of mathematics and how they can apply that to real life situations. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about this in more detail, and perhaps to give our parents some ideas of how they can present opportunities to teach their children?
Yeah. So, in short, we use mathematics every day, and we don't even realise it. So I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you a question.
Oh, please don't.
And I
Because I'm
will.
going to, please
If you
don't ask
don't
me a
think of an
question.
answer, that's okay, because you've probably answered my question, but you don't think of an answer. But can you think of when you used mathematics today? I know it's only it's around noon today. What have you used so far today? Or can you give up one example of what you've done?
I
And all
can't.
those listeners, I want you to do the same. Where have
Um,
you used mathematics today?
I haven't,
All
because
right.
I've been recording podcasts. I've been sort of in conversations with
Oh,
people.
think about the mathematics you've been using doing that. So
Oh,
my point is, we use mathematics so much and we're not even aware of it. All right. So how are you going to support your kids is be aware when you use mathematics. So we would use mathematics. Okay, you and I are not sitting in a shopping center or store right now, but everyone goes. Generally, we go to the store once a day or once every other day for something. Some kind of transaction will take place. When the transaction takes place, that's an opportunity to discuss money. All right. How much do I have? What's the cost of the item? How much more do I need? Now, depending on the age of children, I'm speaking generally, you can ramp that up, or you can simplify those kinds of questions that you would have. How much change am I going to get back? We don't even use cash that much today, but you can still talk about, how much more do I need, or what's the total cost of these items? So that's one. Then we tend to use measurement a lot. So measurement. And the number one measurement we use, and this is why I refer to your podcast, is time, right? What time do I have to be ready to start that podcast at this particular, kick off at noon, as we did here today? What time do I have to be sitting down ready to go? So you're calculating time regularly. The night before, okay, I've got to drive to my home city, my city, sorry. The traffic's going to be worse tomorrow. What time do I have to set my alarm to get up to make sure I do my Pilates? And I've got to iron my shirt and make my coffee, and I better allow another 20 minutes because of traffic. All these calculations. So all around you, there'll be opportunities. I put up a picture on the wall the other day, actually 2 pictures on the wall the other day. And I wanted to make sure they're the same height from the ceiling and they're centered on the wall. And each of the pictures had 2 hooks in the back, not one. So you think about the mathematics that's involved of where do I put the holes in the wall? I only want to put the minimum number. I don't want to put more holes than necessary in the wall to be able to hang those pictures. That's another opportunity. Get your child on the other end, on the busy end of the tape measure. Do the reading of the number. I'll be amazed how many 12-year-olds still can't read a tape measure. Because they do it in this artificial classroom setting, but they don't do it in real settings. That's where the real learning happens.
Yes.
My son and his friend, who are 15 years old, we're up at my farm. We were going to pour a slab, pour concrete by hand. It was only 1 meter wide by, I'm estimating here, 1 meter wide by 3 meters long. So a cattle crush sat on this thing. Now, I said, okay, how are we going to calculate the volume of the gravel, to buy once we formed it up? How much gravel do we have to buy in the trailer to have enough to form this up? I don't know, they'd say. All right, well, let's work this out. What's the area? How are we going to calculate the area? And we just work through it together. That's the area we've got to figure out. So it's the length by the breadth, but this thing has depth as well. So we've got to go that measurement, a third dimension. And we multiply those together, and they worked it all out, but they forgot the formula. We teach formulas and procedures, and they memorize these things, and it means nothing to them. But if you give them an understanding, you get out and do a real thing with them and just ask them probing questions along the way. It's very impactful for kids. And it doesn't have, I know I gave you an example of a 15-year-old, but this can work with a second grader, a child in second year, an 8-year-old, any grade. So the number one thing is you need to be aware of the mathematics you're using, because you will do it subconsciously. You're not even aware you're using mathematics. You're doing it subconsciously that much. And so step back a bit, think about what you're doing, and ask some good probing questions of your child. Those sorts of questions. How would you do this? What's another way you might do it?
Yeah.
How did you figure it out? Those sorts of questions.
So in our day-to-day life, there's a multitude of opportunities to present to children, for them to understand and to be able to calculate these things in their mind and understand that mathematics is something that we use obviously on a day-to-day basis.
Now, yes. We're not going to do it every day. It's just unrealistic. But you know what? If you start being aware of it, you get better at it. And yes. even if you ask 1 or 2 questions a week, you are doing so much more than the person lives beside you. You just got to get them doing it and show a bit of love for the subject.
Yeah.
It is the most important subject they'll encounter. I think I'm biased here, but they need it.
And do you think really it's about establishing a newly acquired understanding of this concept, and how these thought patterns really can sort of help in day-to-day sort of problem-solving situations then?
Yeah, absolutely. They use mathematics in everyday situations. And so the basic, it's the beauty of where I'm sitting in terms of the primary school kids. the mathematics they're learning in primary school is the mathematics that adults use in everyday life. The mathematics you learn in high school is the stuff that you and me will probably never use again, right?
Yes.
That's our career mathematics. That stuff sets us up for a career if we want to go down that path. Um, I write mathematics books for primary school. I did not even go down that path. I don't remember the last time I had to solve a quadratic equation. It would have been
Yes.
grade 12, right? But the stuff we learn, the stuff your 6-year-olds through to even 12-year-olds are learning. I know it's getting into high school, but 12-year-olds are learning is that's the mathematics that we as adults we use in everyday life. So there's no reason we can't connect with them and show them how to use it and when to use it and how to solve it.
That's a really, really fascinating point just there. Well, look,
Yeah.
we've covered, some really interesting topics and points today. If you were to summarize your key messages, I guess, for anyone watching and listening today, how would you summarize what they are? Because I mean,
Oh
how long's
wow,
a
well,
piece
you
of
gave me heads
string?
up about that one. I think that the first major point I said in this podcast today was you want to reduce anxiety. And you want to induce a love of mathematics. So don't say ever to your child or anyone else's child, I was never good at mathematics, because that's instilling this theory in them that it's okay not to be. And
Yes.
it's not. You must be good at mathematics to fit into society, and particularly the society of the future. So you want to encourage that. And it's okay not to know the answer. Don't get me wrong. It's okay not to know the answer. But if you don't know, I say, well, let's work through this together.
So what should a parent say then? Is just, as you just said, let's work through this together.
Yeah, let's. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but that's okay. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try, because you don't know unless you give it a go, right? So you're going to try and solve it together.
Yes.
That's it. There's nothing wrong with not knowing how, and there's definitely nothing wrong with getting the wrong answer. I mean, how do you learn anything unless you get things wrong?
Yes.
If you're getting things right all the time, you're not learning anything. So you have to get things wrong to be able to learn. So you would expect some incorrect answers. I think that's the number one point from today. The second point is, visual representations are very helpful for children to learn mathematics in these concepts. And although the things I showed here, for those who did watch the video, they're more classroom resources. There's still things we can grab, from the kitchen or whatever to help them, understand the idea of measurement. Maybe it's maybe we're understanding mass, that is weight. There's no better tool than a pan balance to teach the concept of mass. And for the most part, we have those things in our classroom. In a classroom. I'm such a teacher. In our home. The other next point was collaboration and communication. Talk to your children. Ask those probing questions. How do you know? How did you get that answer? What's another way you could do it? What's another answer you can get using your strategy? That's a really good probing question too. That makes them think differently, So that and likewise, when it comes to collaboration, it's just that last point about asking them, getting them involved, looking for opportunities to do the mathematics in your home. Sorry, that's very important too.
Well, this has
I
been
think
a
that's interesting. So short summary. Sorry, I probably rambled too much.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's been really insightful. And look, if parents want to be able to access the free resource also with Origo at home, whereabouts can they go then? Where should they go?
Just go to Origo Education. The name's behind me here. It's Origo, ORIGO, origoeducation.com.au, and search for Origo at home. So it's a free resource. Has lots of activities, but they are, heads up, they are designed for a parent to be working with child, not the child necessarily on their own. There are some things for that that certainly has its place, but we want the child to be working with their parent or guardian.
And so the education covers from traditional printed products and all sort of digital interactive resources as well. Is that right?
Yes. So we have a full range of resources, yeah. And in all honesty, it's not just, I'm an advocate here for mathematics. So it's not just Origo Education. As I said, there's plenty of good companies out there doing these sorts of resources for students, young students and children. So just, have a look around. There's plenty of Facebook groups and great podcasts like this, which will help you. But yes, we do have one if you want to go this direction.
Awesome. And Origo at Home is a free resource. So definitely
Yeah.
something that all parents should be checking out. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes. Thanks so much for your time again, James. You take care and look forward to another chat in the not too distant future. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.